Okay, today we're going to take a look at the pcengine GT. I'm going to be doing a LCD screen mod on this. It's a handheld console from the NEC. Start off by undoing the 6 screws that hold the back case of the GT on, 2 of which are located inside the battery tray. Once you've got those screws out, the system opens up a bit like a clamshell, like this picture demonstrates. Always before you start, I think before you did this LCD mod, you want to make sure the system works and you've done a full recap on the system. So that's it all working there, all been recapped and ready to go for the LCD mod. First off, we've got to go over this template from console 5, and this is where I got the kit from. Basically you mark out what I'm doing here with a little marker pen, and what we're then going to be doing is cutting out to extend the window that's in this plastic shell so that it'll accommodate the new LCD screen. I watched a few videos on this tutorial, and I've decided to go with a cutting disc on like a Dremel. I thought I had better control and it gave a nice crisper line that hopefully would require a lot less filing. So let me get on with this and cut this out. Obviously sped up, so it's going to be a bit more less boring, should I say. The plastic burns off quite nicely, so you just have to give these little plastic filings, if you know what I mean, the melted parts, just a bit of a wiggle, and they'll come off out the way, and that'll allow you to see what you're doing a bit more clearly. I was a bit nervous with this because, you know, one slip and that disc would have quite easily have gone through a more important part of the plastic, but I was being very careful and held onto it very strongly, so it actually worked very, very well, and there were no mishaps or anything. So going round this now with a file just to address any imperfections and crisp up the edge, because you can see, if you get it at the right angle, you can actually see this plastic even with the screen protector on. So I've decided just to crisp it up and make a nice neat job of that and get rid of all the flakes and all the little bits and bobs. Because the last thing you want is any plastic fraying off or flicking off once you've got the LCD installed, because that basically will, really piss you off, because it'll be in behind your screen. We've got to cut off that little one of the original screen mounts, because just the way the new LCD kit works and it goes in place. I decided to Dremel this bit, just take it slightly under the surface, just so I used the grinder there just to flat that off. Because the cell cutters don't cut it off completely flush, so I just wanted to get that off just to make sure it would align properly and be nice and flush and crisp. So that we're nearly there. It's the shell just wants a few little tweaks and rearrange things, so we're nearly there to actually start putting on the LCD screen. So I'm just offering up some of the brackets just to get an understanding of, I've never done one of these before, so I'm just getting a better understanding of how the LCD goes into this plastic shell. And just make sure I get everything right, because the last thing I want to be doing is taking this. Things like this don't tend to like coming in and out. They're quite fragile, and they don't work very well if they're messed around. I originally started, so one thing I've missed, I did originally start, I was going to do a composite mod. So this is a composite screen with a composite controller. If you notice the red bodge wire on the back of the circuit board, that basically was there to allow the board to run a lower voltage of 5 volts, because originally the system is designed to run a higher voltage. So what I'm doing here is just elongating or putting like a little recess in the screen posts to allow the LCD screen to sit up slightly higher. I think the screen would have been a tiny bit too low if I hadn't just ground those posts a tiny bit, just to put like a little cutout in so that the LCD sits a bit snugger and a bit further up the screen. I didn't really want to go with the composite mod, but I weren't really sure what the quality was like, so I took the gamble to go with an LCD mod, and then to go with the composite side of that. I did not find along my journey that there was an RGB mod that was also available and had supposedly better quality. But I'd already purchased this, so I thought, well, I'll give it a go and see how it goes on. This pcengine GT came to me broken, and it was in a really, really sad way. It has taken actually many years to get the components and the things, actually a lot of research, a lot of messing around to actually get this pcengine to actually start up again. So it's amazing that it actually works. So basically, get back to what I was talking about, the LCD conversion. As you can see, there's a yellow composite, red and black, which obviously power for that LCD screen. So at this point, I was pretty much going with the fact that I was going to go with a composite mod, and I'm just tidying things up. You have to rotate the speaker around so that the connections, because obviously the screen mount's slightly different. The speaker would catch and would get in the way. So you have to rotate the speaker a little bit, just so the connections don't marry correctly, if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to get that done, then we can get the controller board in. At this stage, I didn't know that the controller pads, the little rubber feet with the carbon bits in it, I didn't know they were knackered. So at this point, I actually end up putting everything original back with the controller board back in. But I did actually order some new rubbers innards for the control buttons from Wheels Console Mods, so they're now in it, so the button response is obviously a lot better, and the button triggering is a lot better. So this bit I always hate, whether I'm doing a Game Gear or anything screen related. It doesn't seem to matter how hard I try, I end up with muck behind the screen. So I really do trying hard here to make sure that I don't get any muck behind the screen, and at this point I actually did. It looks pretty good now, but there must have been some plastic flakes or shavings that I hadn't blown out, and they managed to, as per usual, find their way behind the screen. So a bit later on you'll see that's not really a problem, because I'm just testing the screen here just to make sure it does power up and it is doing what it's supposed to be doing at this stage. But I decided that I wasn't going to go with the composite mod. I decided, eBay basically decided for me. RGB LCD screen kit came up, and I decided to go with that and drop the composite mod. So even though I'm showing this, I'm not going to show taking it all out and converting it, and installing the RGB screen, because it's pretty much the same. There's a few connections that are slightly different. The composite mod is a lot harder to do. It's a lot more destructive, and I did have all the components ready to rock and roll to allow me to do the composite mod, but at the last minute I decided to change my mind. I thought the composite mod was too destructive and too many risks, so I dropped that idea. I've since changed it to an RGB screen with an RGB controller, which, to be fair, was worth the extra money. It was a lot easier to install. It's non-destructive. Some of the components from Console 5 have been really great for making this process a lot more streamlined and a lot better for doing it. So I was really pleased that Console 5 and all the people that support them are really on the ball. What's going on here is I'm just curing some solder mask, just to go over a crystal that I've changed out, the clock crystal. Next on, obviously, this is the driver board for the LCD. At the bottom we've got RGB and C-Sync and ground, video ground, and at the top we've got the 5 volts and ground to power the board. This is a little bodge you've got to do. I think it's something to do that if you don't do this mod, that get rid of that transistor and bridge that wire, you get black and white, you don't get colour output. So that's just something else you have to do. That's the composite mod solution. Again, you've got to lift legs on the board and stuff like that. Far too complicated. So Console 5 sell this little RGB breakout board, which I thought was really fantastic. It goes in here where the LCD would have plugged in originally. This is just a little bit more of a close-up, a bit higher res close-up. So you take the ribbon cable out, you put that little adapter in, and away you go. C-Sync is collected from this little via, so you just basically clean the via up and put a wire on there, and they all go on to obviously the driver board that I'm just pointing out there. With it installed, that's what it looks like when it's all installed. This particular I managed to harvest is been using hot glue, not my way of doing it, but hey ho. 5 volt for the screen comes from the back of that transistor, and any of the screen shield holes or vias you can pick up an earth there, that's no problem. So that's it, all back together. I'm really chuffed that it looks fantastic. Like you say, it's giving it a good thorough clean. There's no muck behind the screen. So that's basically before and after. This is the using an EverDrive. I found that the text is actually really crisp and smooth and nice to navigate, much, very much unlike the original screen. So what do the games play like? That's what we're all here for. Well, there you go, beautifully crisp, nice and bright and vivid colours. Really pleased with that. It was worth all the extra hassle, and it was a long time coming. This was a machine that I thought was dead, and there was no chance of resurrecting it. I didn't think that I'd get anywhere, that I could get this machine up and running, let alone get to the point where I felt it was worth an LCD upgrade. So really chuffed that that's actually worked out fantastically. R-Type, one of my favourite games. Had a quick playthrough on that. And this is basically what we had. This was the original. For its day, it was absolutely top drawer. This was the machine to have. It was an absolute Rolls Royce of the consoles, far superior to any other handheld that came out at the time. Absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, it looks a bit dated today, but I am glad now that I've got before and after, modern and old. I don't like normally to modify consoles unless they're seriously in need of having it, and again, this one really came back from the dead, so I'm really pleased that I got to do this one. Okay, there we go. LCD mod on a pcengine GT. Really pleased. It really went well. It was fun doing it, and I'm glad that everything went well. And if you've managed to get this far, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again in the next video. Bye for now.